right, we are, excuse me, we are back with another HEF podcast. That is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation, which is the organization that was started by Brenda Dickinson and her husband Craig Dickinson in the early 90s, just after securing a victory for home education families in the state of Florida. If you don't know, every state has its own laws when it comes to home education, or as some people call it, homeschooling. And in the early days, you had to kind of find a way to cooperate with a private school and register and kind of slide under the radar and keep your kids home and hidden until the public school kids were out so that no one knew. And that didn't sit well with Brenda and her husband Craig, or Daniel Webster, Representative Daniel Webster from the day. And so they worked together and collaborated to give us the Home Education Statutes 1002.41 that established the right of every parent to educate their own child. And here we are today, 40 years later, with bright futures, dual enrollment, scholarships, books that are paid for, your transcripts that will transfer, the ability to play sports at public schools and private schools in the state. It is a amazing educational landscape, and many people across the country are copying Florida. And a lot of that has to do with Brenda Dickinson and the legacy and the work of so many more in the legislature who have seen the value of expanding the rights of parents and the opportunities and the options that they have. And that is coming under attack. But before we get to any of that, let's say thank you also to the parents of the free state of Florida, many of whom were here at the FPEA convention. So we loved running into you and seeing you. And as well, since we mentioned FPEA, we might as well say our top sponsors. They are one of them, FPEA, Arete, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. And we're so thankful to have them. And without further ado, we'll reveal where we are today. So I'm actually here still at the wrap-up final day. I guess the convention is over, but here we are kind of saying our goodbyes and packing things up. It was an amazing convention. Brenda, you were here, but I was telling people when they would ask, is Brenda still around? And I would say, yes, she's still the face. I think I'm just the legs now. So my legs got tired, but you got to roam around and meet and greet. What did you think?
I was amazed at how many vendors there were and how many new families there were. You have to remember that the first convention was around 1985 in Gainesville, and we were at a church with 3 Sunday school rooms. And now I think there were probably, I was trying to calculate this morning, there were 17 rows with about 10 vendors on each row.
Yeah.
I didn't count them all, but it was a lot of people there who had curriculum and other things they felt like would be great for homeschoolers, books and games, and kids were having a ball.
They sure were. Oh, everywhere. I saw. We even had things come flying over the top of ours. Those little frisbees. Yeah. People were having an absolute blast, and there were so many people there. I think the last count that I heard, and it's not the official count. I'm sure they'll tell us at some point, but I heard talk among the staff that it was about 17 to 18,000 people at the convention.
I don't doubt it. There were a lot of people. And, you know, the thing about it is a lot of people plan their vacations for this weekend because every year this convention is on Memorial Day weekend. And so they come and enjoy this beautiful hotel. This year we're at the Gaylord Palms in Orlando. And kids have a lot of things to do and lots of swimming time. Man, the pools were crowded yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And graduation was yesterday.
That's right. I think there were maybe 350 people in the graduation. From what I understand, it went from about 11 o'clock to who knows when, 2 to 3 o'clock. I finally saw some of them in the evening when we sat down for dinner. So I don't know exactly how long the graduation went, but it was It was fantastic.
And there were people that came from other states to graduate
Yeah,
here with our homeschoolers in Florida
yeah,
because other states don't have what we have here.
yes, they're trying. Some of them are trying, and some of them are trying to push it back. Actually, when we were one of the hot topics this year in some of the legislative panels, and when people were talking at our booth, I think HSLDA had this conversation with a lot of people at their booth as well. But Connecticut, the what's going on in Connecticut, where they're proposed a law, and they heard, well, let's talk about what the law does first. They proposed a law that would make it so that a parent would have to go in person to a school to declare that they wanted to homeschool. And then once they did that, then DCF would have to investigate to see whether or not, I mean, I'll just truncate it and say it plainly, whether or not the parent can be trusted to educate their own kids.
And have
And,
them home all day by themselves.
yeah, because who knows whether or not their own parents can be trusted. It, it's a very slippery slope. It's a very sad situation, the one that they use to kind of push the narrative. But you're looking at rights still being pushed away and pushed back, and we're seeing a resurgence with the Florida Education Association's lawsuit. You've got so many. I've talked to so many. I'm just going to say it plainly. I've heard Republicans talking about how we need to get these kids out of Step Up for Students and back into public schools because the public schools are suffering. The narrative that they're pushing is starting to swell, and we need parents to know their rights. That's one of the reasons why we come every year to the FPEA convention, to kind of let people know that we're here, let people know what we're working on, what's important, what's happening in Florida, because Connecticut and Florida are not the same. There goes my family. Connecticut and Florida are not the same. But we also want to fight. We have to fight to keep it that way. One of the things I talked about in one of the panels that I got to speak on was how um, we do this thing in our home where the boys kind of learn to box, and they do some punching around, and one of the little ones, he blocks, and he's very good at blocking. He just locks down, and you can't get him. You can't get him. He's good, but he'll never knock anyone out with just defense, right?
Right.
Unless he throws a punch, he'll never win. And as a home education community, we can play a good defense, but unless we learn how to go on the offensive and push back and take some of that ground back, all we'll do is slowly lose ground, but we'll still lose it. So we've got to band together, unify in our voice, and stand up for our rights whenever they're pressed. It happens in small ways all over the state, and we're just trying to be here to educate parents on how that happens and what we can do to help and how they can partner with us in
Well,
that effort.
I think that most people don't realize what HEF does, Home Education Foundation. We are in the Capitol. I've passed that torch on to Jason, thankfully, because it was a huge responsibility to look at every piece of legislation, make sure that no little lines struck out some of our rights and nobody saw it. And the thing that happens when you've got a lobbyist in the Capitol on a daily basis is that you're building relationships. Every day you're keeping in the forefront of their minds, there's somebody here representing the parents who are home educating in the state of Florida. They're a little reluctant to do anything when we're there in the committee meetings, we're there in their offices, we're saying, our parents are doing a great job and we don't need any further regulation. And those states that have that kind of threat to home education, they don't have a full-time lobbyist. And the presence in the Capitol is what keeps Florida free. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. It costs money. It costs money to
It
have a
does.
lobbyist in Tallahassee. Just the tools that Jason's using to do this podcast costs money.
Yeah.
And all the equipment costs money. We have tracking systems that are $2,000 plus that we use to try to keep up with the legislation on the amendments to bills that might have just gotten slipped in there. It is a full-time job, and people don't realize it because they think, well, if something happens, I'll just run to the Capitol and we'll get a whole group up there and we'll protest. Sometimes by the time that happens, it's too late.
Mhm.
And that happened in 1991.
Oh,
What's happening in Connecticut happened in 1991 in Florida.
in Florida. Okay.
Yes. And it was the old system where everything was paper. They file the bills in boxes according to numbers.
Wow. Sorry.
I was
I'm not
there.
laughing.
I was there.
I'm just thinking about how far we've come.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
That was pretty laughable. And so they had a speaker system in the Capitol, and you could hear what was going on the floor. You'd have to go in person to every committee meeting. There was no way to track a bill except going there and pulling the bill. They couldn't send it to us.
Wow.
You had to go
Yeah.
pull it from
Wow.
the clerk's office. And so I was working that session. I was able to do that in Dan Webster's office part time during the session. And I was listening to what was going on on the floor. And I heard this bill about abuse. And I thought, oh my gosh, that would be a perfect place to have put something about home education. And I pulled the bill they were working on, and there it was in plain sight. Home education parents had to be run through the child abuse register before they would be approved to home educate.
Wow. So you're saying that what is happening in Connecticut happened in Florida in the early 90s, and you caught it.
Well, that's why we started the Home Education Foundation. Craig was
Oh,
working a
wow.
full-time job, and he couldn't be at the Capitol. He couldn't be in every committee meeting. And so we thought, well, we've got to hire a lobbyist and somebody that would be there and watch what was happening in all the committees. Well, we were watching Education Committee, but this happened in the Children and Families Committee. And so it was all paper. It was a huge bill, and we missed it. It was on the floor. It was too late to do anything about it at that point. But Craig went into action right after that, went to the Department of Education and said, we're going to sue you if you implement this, because we have a right to home educate our children in Florida. And the department goes, well, what are we supposed to do? Because they have to write implementing language and rules for whatever's passed on the floor. And so they got together with the law enforcement department, and the person that was in charge of the database said, you'll be number 12 in our list of priorities. You will never get to number 12. We never get past number 7.
Wow.
So in essence, they would have shut down home education in the state of Florida.
Yeah, let me unpack what you meant right there, because I don't know if everybody might understand that. So you're saying that when they were talking about the implementing language, we would have been way, way, way down on the list, and they would have never even gotten. We're not important enough for them to get to us,
Right.
to even process our requests to raise our own kids.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Unbelievable.
So the department said, and by that time we had a few friendly faces at the department, and so the person that was in charge there said, well, what would you suggest we do? And he said, well, I think if parents sign an affidavit saying I've never been charged or what was the other word, investigated for child abuse, then the superintendent could accept that and they could go ahead and home educate. So for 2 years, parents had to sign that affidavit in order to be able to be approved to home educate.
Yeah.
So people don't know how scary it was in the beginning, but see, just Craig being there, knowing how the system worked, being able to go and talk to the department, we were able to kind of sidestep that. And then very interesting.
Very interesting, because I never knew that the Connecticut thing right now happening in Florida was the origin story for the Home Education Foundation's filing. I was always wondering, like, because you guys started working earlier in the 80s, and then we had, home education statutes in 1985, but then the Home Education Foundation didn't come till early 90s.
Yeah.
That's
because
You just made it click for me. That's interesting.
yeah,
Thank you.
we couldn't be in the Capitol. I was homeschooling the kids, and Craig was working a full time, pretty intense job with the state, and so all we could think of was, well, I'll hire a lobbyist. And so we did approach a lobbyist who was a well known lobbyist. And he said, I don't understand education at all. He said, I will track the legislation for you, but if there's anything that needs to be handled, you have to come and do it. That's what he said to Craig.
Okay.
So we went around, nobody was paying us, but we felt really called to make this a freedom for parents in the state of Florida. It's not a religious freedom.
Right.
It's a parental rights. And that's
Correct.
how we fight in for the home education families is it's not up to us what curriculum you use, what choice you make, and where you put your children, what you teach your children. That's your business. But
Certainly.
we're going to fight for your rights.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit more too, because I appreciate the FPEA convention, but everybody here is very faith focused, and I love that about them. I'm also very faith focused. We've talked about God a couple of times on the podcast, but I think it might go missed sometimes that for us, it isn't about your religion. It's the idea that you are the parent and the state is not the parent.
Correct.
And that's it. That's all there is, and you get to decide. If you decide to do that with religious curriculum, that's your business. And if you decide to do that in your own curriculum or make your own curriculum yourself from scratch, it
Right.
doesn't mention anything about that.
Right.
That is your business. And
Well,
that's how that freedom to do it your own way is so I'm waving my hand, but I'm getting in front of the camera. It's so important. And that's really our North Star is the freedom, the parental rights, the authority given to the parent. And it doesn't come from the state. We do bring God into it because we don't believe that the rights come from the state. The rights do come from God.
Right.
The state, we work to get the state to recognize those.
Right.
But the duty of the education is the parents. The education system is helpful, and the parent can choose to go benefit from it. And if they don't see it as beneficial, they are still the parent, and they have the choice to do their all other things, charter schools, private schools,
Right.
or make their own curriculum or teach their children themselves or mix it up
Yeah.
in hybrid options.
We've made so many options out there. Parents don't actually have to teach anything.
Yeah.
Which in high school that makes sense, because they can start dual enrollment early, like in 10th grade. I could never understand why you had to do biology in high school and do it again in college. Let's just do biology.
I had to do that when I went to college.
I know.
Yeah.
So why are we duplicating all of these things? Let's just breeze on through and get to the end. And so
Certainly.
I fought really hard to get those options in place. In about 1996, the leadership changed and Dan Webster became the Speaker of the House. We got a Republican majority.
Wow.
But prior to all those years, we had a Democrat governor, House majority, and Senate majority. And yet, even under those Democrats, we were able to earn the rights. We actually got bright futures during that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I have this conversation with people at the convention a lot too, which is that it's not about what color jersey you wear. If you're a Democrat and you wear a blue jersey or a Republican and a red jersey, one of the challenges I think facing the conservatives right now is that, the Democrats typically stick together with their blue jerseys, but the Republicans take their jerseys off and play skins versus shirts. And I'm like, we gotta figure a way to find, at the end of the day, it's not your party that should lead the way, it's the idea that should lead the way. And we should get behind the ones when you're interviewing candidates, interview them and ask them questions about your parental rights and where they think they fall in comparison to the public school system or in comparison to the education options that are out there or the health system, etc. Ask them where they fall on parental rights. And I got to say, I'm very appreciative. We had Rachel Rodriguez. I had not heard of her before. but she was there. Her booth was just down from ours. She's running for governor. And we had previous Speaker of the House, Paul Renner, was there. And then we had Lieutenant Governor was there, who's running for governor, Jay Collins. And unfortunately, my bald spot went viral on a video that somebody ambushed him with. So if you see that, if you see that floating around, pay no attention to the
Jay
man
Collins.
behind Jay Collins,
Right.
because that's going to be me, unfortunately. But it was the panel that was there, and the questions that they asked were, they ran the gamut as far as their platforms. And I was hoping to hear more in the weeds type stuff for home education families and parental rights very specifically, and unpack some of the challenges from Connecticut and bring them in and ask them questions about that happening here and what they think about that. And so I think I've been talking with our board, and I think that we're going to prepare a list of questions and send out to all of the candidates and invite them to answer those questions. And then what we're going to try to do is get those questions onto here in some future podcasts so that you guys can all, I want to go in the weeds on some of these things with them, but I want it to be very, very focused on the parental rights portion and really get them to say where they stand on that,
Right.
because I think that's the most important ideological, like, North Star that we should be focused on, especially as the home education community. But it was still interesting to meet them all and to see them. I had I got to give a shout out to Cooper Campin. He made me this really cool Mr. T necklace. He 3D printed it himself. It was absolutely fantastic.
And it says homeschool, SKOOL,
Yeah.
in case
So
you can't see it.
I had to wear it the whole time, which I was happy to, because it's such a cool thing. But his family, he brought his kids down, Brad Campin, and brought Cooper and the rest of the family down, and they were really running around and grabbing the contacts that we needed, since I was working the booth so hard. And it had people come by and meet us, and man, what a breath of fresh air it is to have people like that volunteering and just showing up when we need them. I thought maybe I might run into him, but he showed up in full force with his family, and it just, what a difference that kind of thing
And we
makes.
need those people all over the state.
Oh man, we do.
We can work in Tallahassee and we make good contacts and good relationships, but you at home can do the same thing by getting to know your legislators, your senators, those that are running. And even if it's not the person that you would vote for and they win, go talk to them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny
Yes.
story. Can I tell you a funny story?
Oh please, yeah.
So one of my board members was very active in campaigns for the Republican running in her district, and the Republican did not win.
Okay.
So when the elections were over, she made an appointment to go meet the new representative, and she took her boys. She had two boys, and at that point they were probably 10 and 12. So they got to her office and they were sitting there, and the representative wasn't really paying too much attention to what she was saying. She kept looking at the boys. And so she said to her, "How do you get those boys to read all the time? They were just sitting there reading books while they were in there."
Okay.
And she was blown away.
Yeah.
But it made such an impression on her. And I'm going to tell you, the kids make an impression.
Yes, they do.
So take your children with you, because most of them, I won't say all of them, I've seen some that are needing a little discipline, but
It's
for
the
the
freedom we have to risk.
but the 99% of the children are so well behaved. They interact so well with adults.
Yeah.
Walk up, stick their hand out, shake their hand. And that is impressive. It is very impressive.
It makes a big difference. Not to throw shade on anyone, but my two daughters were in line to get ice cream last night, and they're getting older. They're in their early teens, but they're getting older. Bless my heart.
Yeah.
And so these boys in front of them kept turning around to flirt with them, and they came to me and they were like, "Dad, they had TikTok brain rot." Like, there's just such a behavioral difference from the boys in our homeschool group that they hang out with.
Right.
And I was like, well, you're noticing it too. It's just interesting.
Well, I want to tell you, so later when the lady came to Tallahassee, I was in the appropriations suite waiting to see one of the staffers, and she came and sat down on the bench next to me. She didn't realize she could just walk in. She was new, so she sat down by me. And I said, "Oh, Representative," whatever her name was. I'm not going to give names, but
you can scoot in.
But I said, one of my board members who homeschools her children came to see you in your office. And she looked totally blank. And I said, she came with her two boys in the meeting. And she said, those boys were amazing. She didn't remember the board member. She didn't remember what the person was saying, but she remembered those two boys. So
it makes a difference.
It does.
It does.
Really does.
It does. Well, we'll wrap things up here. Just to kind of mention a few other people who were here, other than, those who are running for governor. We had Larry the Cucumber. We had a couple of authors were here. The whole Realm Makers crew, I think, was here. Connie Albers was here. Chuck Black was one of the keynote speakers. We had Coach Rick from Saints down in South Florida.
Yeah.
He was here. Patriot Academy was here.
Rick Green.
Yes. And we had parents from our Discord here come up, and they would be like, "Oh, I'm so and so in the Discord, and I'm this person in the Discord," and I was like, "That's awesome! It's awesome." We had a lot of parents kind of taking note that I think the first year we mentioned Discord, people were kind of like, "Huh, what is that?" And now that we're a year into that, and people have started to see the benefit of school board meetings being posted and other parents coming in to help out with parents in their area, keep tabs on things. It's
a great networking tool.
Right. And they have just started to go, oh yeah, absolutely, we'll get right on. So
we need leaders in each one of those counties.
We do.
We need somebody that will be, take the initiative and go meet the representatives. And if anything comes up and we know that you, whoever you are, knows your representative, sometimes I have to track down homeschoolers that are related or know somebody in the district to be able to get an appointment. And so if you could help us with that kind of thing by being proactive, it would be awesome.
Absolutely. That it cannot be overstated. That is absolutely true. We have a handful of parents that do that in a handful of the counties right now, and the footprint and the connections that we're able to build there are so much deeper and impactful. We have some of those who are interested in running bills with us, so it does make a huge difference when those connections can be made, especially in the world of misinformation that we find ourselves in. They don't just because they're elected to run for the office doesn't mean they already know everything.
Right.
So they rely on people in their circles to help keep them informed of what's real and what's true when they see a lot of these stories come out. Like we covered this week on our podcast, or last Monday's podcast, the Step Up for Students came on and shared their data with us about what is actually being spent in the scholarship, because everybody keeps saying theme park tickets and kayaks, and they shared with us that that's actually less than 1% of the whole scholarship, but that's all anyone talks about.
Right.
So helping our representatives and senators peek behind the curtain and understand the truth of what's really going on, instead of just always getting bombarded by headlines from their constituents, is a huge benefit. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, and how many homeschoolers do we have out there that could help us with that?
Oh, we have the last numbers that we saw was 155,000 home education students. Yeah.
So
there's a lot.
Yes, and we
only need a few.
I'm going to pitch giving at this point, because it doesn't happen magically. I lobbied basically for free for 40 years, and I felt like God called me for that. He provided for me in other ways, but it was nearly impossible to raise money from home education families. You're willing to give 10% of your income to your church, which is great, but we're not even asking for 10%. If you could give $1 per child per month per year, we would have, do the numbers, 155,000 times 12. We would have enough money to support Jason and his family because he's taken a huge leap of faith to give up what he had going in the Tampa Bay area to move to Tallahassee and be able to be your voice in the capital. So please consider going to our website, and there's a place on the website where you can click on and automatically
Yeah.
just put in whatever you feel like you can do. But your right to homeschool could easily become Connecticut
Yeah.
if somebody's not there watching.
Yeah, we're really only ever one session away of something
Right.
slipping through or this little thing happening. In fact, I will say, I'll just add this, that what a lot of people don't realize is that some of the big problems that could have been never were, so they don't become the scares. The big sports bill rewrite, the Craig Dickinson Act, was
Just this
rewritten.
past year.
Yes, and in that rewrite, they actually they wanted to create one uniform system, so they're not talking about public school students, private school students, homeschool students. They're just student. So now it's just student, and all students are treated the same. And here's the uniform set of criteria. And they removed the protections for home education parents in determining the academics for their participation. And we fought to get that back in, and that's it was huge, because if they hadn't done that, the only way to participate in public school sports would be to make your homeschool look like public school.
Right.
And it would then be public school at home if you wanted to
Right.
play sports.
Right.
So,
And people aren't even aware of that.
no,
That aren't in our Discord. The ones that are in our Discord do
they know.
know. So join the Discord. Tell them how.
Yeah, it's a flhef.org/discord. That's where you can go to find all the information about our Discord and see what it is, what the plans for it are, what the vision is, and what the community is all about. And then sign on and onboard right there. There's no cost, no fees. It's there just as a part of being a part of our community.
And Jason manages that. Wouldn't it be great if he had somebody
Yes.
that was knowledgeable
Yes.
that could take that part of what he does in building community, and handle that? So we're not, lavish in what we do, but we need money to operate.
Yeah, and even if we get to the point where we can bring a couple of extra hands on deck, stuff like that, it the more that we are able to do, the more ground we can protect in our state, and that can't be understated or overstated. So,
Tell them about the game we did.
yeah, yes, ma'am, absolutely. We also had Bill Maddox from the James Madison Institute that was here with us, and Benjamin Franklin.
Yes.
We jumped in the TARDIS, went back in time, grabbed him, and brought him here with us. He was on our podcast previously, and I think we're going to have him on again. But he does a fantastic job staying in character the entire time. And as students would come up, we would ask them quizzes about the founding fathers, like little questions, and they would get prizes. And then he would wax in their ear a story about what it was like when he was younger. I actually had one who stopped and started asking him about his philosophy on this and why America was like that. And this Benjamin Franklin actor is so well read on Benjamin Franklin because he's played him for so long that I think he talks to that person for like 30 or 40 minutes.
I cornered him in the booth and asked him a few things too, like, we've heard Benjamin Franklin as a deist. I said, explain that more, So it was, you really got a feel for what it was really like, who the person was.
And he had his little period spectacles and his tricorn hat. Yeah, it was great. We even had students who would come and ask questions and get their prize, but they would come back to ask more questions because they wanted to test their knowledge about the founding fathers. So yeah, it was great.
So this is America 250.
Yes, it is a grant that we got to help run and create a quiz game in partnership with James Madison Institute for the celebration of the 250th anniversary of our country, our nation, America.
Right.
Yes.
Cool.
I think we are good. It is Memorial Day, and so we thank you all for being with us. It's a special day. Remember those who have fallen to protect the freedoms that we hold dear. You know, a lot of people, you know, this week we're talking about how freedom isn't free. It doesn't come for free. It isn't a given. It's something that is a benefit and a blessing that we have because others have paid the price. And so, in keeping, I guess, with what we've been talking about this whole time, we just a special thank you to all of those, you know, a moment to remember them. I know we always get caught up in the barbecues and maybe the drinks and having a good time, but it's kind of a somber thing,
It is.
and it's very serious. We very much appreciate all of that, and that's the love of that is one of the things that propels us on to continue doing the thing that we do to continue to protect those freedoms in all the different ways. But we're thankful for their sacrifice.
My dad was on a mission over Japan, and his plane was shot down. There were 12 in the crew, and my dad was one of 3 that survived that.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yes, he kept in touch with the other 2 for a very long time. But, you know, they were young. They were young men. My dad was the oldest. He was 27.
Yeah.
And the rest of them were, you know, in their early 20s that were there. So they didn't live their lives out, but they fought to save America.
Yeah. It's easy to go on and get caught up in the speed of my Wi-Fi or whether, you know, I'm comfortable today or my package has arrived on time and just forget the seriousness of
Right.
of what was paid for the things that we enjoy and take for granted. So take a moment and not take it for granted. Take a moment and breathe slower and sit with your kids and tell them a story about someone in your family who served, you
Right.
know, or read about one, you know, if your family doesn't have that legacy. So it's very important to keep that memory alive and the concept of the cost because everything comes at a cost and those people paid it for us. So,
We value freedom, but it isn't free.
no, 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 no. All right. Well, I don't have anything else to add. I think we've covered the wrap up from the convention and a bunch of other things. So, is there
We're headed
anything?
home
Yeah. Now we've got to head home. Yeah, I've got to check out of here. There goes my family.
again.
Again, they're loading the car. Well, before we head out, Brenda, is there any last thing you'd like to say?
Please check out our Discord, and if there's any way possible you can make a commitment to support the work that we do here, it's to your advantage because you're the one that's going to benefit from all the work that Jason does in the Capitol. So please take note of that and go to flhef.org and join our Discord.
Thank you. I just see that we had some comments come through.
Oh,
So, hello to everyone in the comments and enjoy your Memorial Day. Make it special, make it memorable, make it meaningful. And we will see you next Monday on the podcast.